Welcome in, Manitoba female U18 AAA Hockey League fans. I'm your host, Graham, the gshow Forsyth. We're live now on our main website, gshow.ca. This edition of the MFHL Podcast brought to you by Goaltenders, Elite Prospects, Movement Fitness and Performance Can, Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, and Goaltenders. I know that we were supposed to have a few shows this week, but man, let me tell you something. I'm about done with technical difficulties this year, and all the behind-the-scenes drama it's nothing to do with the leagues or anything, but just with our streaming service, we've had a pretty big issue in the last few days that finally got resolved. But my attention was more so towards that, and well, it's also the start of playoffs this week too in the Winnipeg High School Hockey League's Platinum Promotions Division. MFHL playoffs are going to be starting up next week. We're into the final week of the regular season as of right now, as there's only 2 more games to be played, and then boom, we start playoffs coming up on the week of the 16th. So next week, that is. But as for why they're not going to be playing any games over the weekend, it's going to be the top 68 tryouts for the program of excellence for the women's national development team. Want to make a correction, and you'll hear this screw up as well. I guess I read it wrong, but I said Gelsey McComb was the head coach of Team Manitoba's program of excellence heading into the 2026 national championships, but she's going to be an assistant coach. Jordan Zacharias is the head coach of the program of excellence this year, and to talk to me about it, I got his thoughts on it, was Ferdi Nelissen. Joined me last week in a segment that was supposed to air last week, but we're still going to show you it today. We're also going to show you highlights, the stats, the standings from around the MFHL heading into the final 2 games of the regular season. But me and Ferdi talk about 2 players that recently committed to universities, or at least it was recently announced, in Addison Tomes and Delaney Darby. More on that coming up on this edition of the MFHL Podcast as Ferdi Nelissen joins the next stage, our college commitment segment, coming up next. Ferdi Nelissen back on the college commitment segment, which is, of course, now called the next stage, with these players that we talked about taking that next stage eventually. And Gordy, been waiting on this one, but arguably the top goaltender in the MFHL is going to have a new home in Saskatchewan as Addison Tomes commits to the University of Saskatchewan Huskies. Big moment for a player that has been through quite a journey. Thoughts on that?
Well, the University of Saskatchewan, Steve Cook has run a really good program there for a lot of years. I think the last couple of years they've struggled a bit. I don't know if he's thinking goaltending is the issue because his goaltenders, there's nobody graduating. I don't know if somebody's leaving but Addison has always proven that she can step into a situation and earn her ice time, right? I mean, a lot of times when you're moving into these university programs, if they have a distinct number 1 goalie, that goalie gets a ton of ice time. Right now, Saskatchewan's in a playoff spot, but they're right. Bisons are chasing them. But you know what? It's a good school. It's close to home. Academically, maybe that's the choice she wanted to make. And maybe she didn't want to go more than 7 hours away from 7, 8 hours away. And they play in a really tough Canada West League. So I think personally it's a pretty good fit for her. I really like the youth sport programs and how they've grown over the last 10 to 12, 15 years. They become way more competitive, and the caliber of hockey is really good. So it's an interesting choice for sure. There's been other girls from our league that have gone to U of S. It hasn't been I would say a hot spot, but there's definitely been players from our league go there. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and in a competitive Canada West, right? Like U
Yep,
of M added on Bray Kapusta. She committed this season
right.
for Ivy Perkins. She made her commitment to the University of Regina, Alameda, Carvalho, going to UBC. So yeah, I think it's a great
Almost
move. Yeah.
almost the schools you were talking about there outside of Saskatchewan have all got new coaches. Manitoba, Regina. So they're those coaches are aggressively recruiting.
Yep.
So if you can show them what you're capable of, those coaches are out there. They're brand new to the program, 1 or 2 years, and they're going to want to set the uh, the tone for their program. They're going to want to build the team like you know they inherit a team, but let's face it, they're going to be building a team. And when you get an Ivy Perkin to go to, like you say, Regina or you know, the U of M needs offense, so they've loaded up, obviously loaded up on an offensive player from the Avros. So those two coaches are going to be aggressive for sure.
No doubt. And you mentioned how it's not exactly like the most popular destination, U of Saskatchewan, but there is MFHL talent. Hallie Franklin, McKenna
Yeah,
Steves, Ava Bergman, former Winnipeg Ice player, Kaylin Weisner from the Winnipeg Avros. So gonna be nice to,
Emily Upgang
yeah,
from my championship team, our championship caps team, went there and loved it. Great campus. Saskatoon's a very nice city. So it's like I said, it hasn't been one of the top destinations for our players from our league, but that could change. I mean, Regina has taken a lot of players from our league. You know, lately Mount Royal has seems to be a destination. We've had players go to Alberta, UBC. So you know what? It depends on what the coach is looking for and what he sees, right?
no doubt about that. And Midland, they're a huge hotbed for MFHL talent, and they just added on Delaney Darby, a player that's been pretty reliable for Coach Matt Victor and his Pembina Valley staff these past 2 seasons and throughout her MFHL career. A leader on that team, wearing a letter this year. Thoughts on that? Midland adding a really reliable player in Darby.
Well, Midland seems to like Manitoba players. There's a pile of them that have gone there the last 3 to 4 years, and obviously when you have success with where you're recruiting from, you're gonna keep kicking at can till it doesn't work for you, right? I mean,
Right.
Midland is a top 3 to 4 team in ACHA hockey, Division One, almost every year, and that's been with, you know, half the roster or close to it being from Manitoba. So the players that I know that have gone there from the CAPS programs and other programs really like it. It's competitive environment. They like the school environment. Um, and so if you're looking for that smaller school environment, you know, it's an act those schools are generally very academic based, but yet they're running a tremendous hockey program. So obviously it's I think it's going to be a really good fit for Delaney. I really do. I think that's a good fit for her abilities and her talents. And I think Midland's going to get like you said, a very not flashy, but very hard-nosed, dependable, um, reliable player that plays the game on the right side of the puck.
Yeah, she logs a lot of minutes for that
Yep,
squad and
absolutely.
leads the team in defensive scoring with 11. That's four more than the second most in Ella Victor. And for Midland, obviously benefiting from Manitoba talent, do you feel like similar programs to them down the line? I don't know who those programs could be, or we may already be seeing it, but go for more talent here down in
Well,
Manitoba.
you've got two that come to mind right away for me, and that's Jamestown, who are only about 3 or 4 years old. And I would say 50% of their roster might be Manitoba. And they got themselves ranked in the top 10 after a couple of years. And the other one is Minot State.
Right. Yeah.
Minot State has an abundance of Manitoba players, and they're generally ranked in the top 2, 3 in the ACHA Division One every year. They're a top 4 or 5 team for sure. So again, of course, their coach um, has a connection. He's a Manitoba boy, so
Yeah.
that doesn't hurt. But in all fairness, it doesn't matter if you're a Manitoba boy if you're not having success, you're not going to keep coming back to the if the well dries up, you're not dipping for sand, you know.
No, for sure. For sure. And speaking of Minot, just talked about Claire Hudson in our last time doing
Yeah.
this segment in the first one. So definitely going to be fun to see what Delaney Darby can do at that next level. Outside of university talk, I feel like it's relevant to bring this up since tryouts are going to be happening the weekend before playoffs are going to start. But Program of Excellence, top 68 roster was announced. A lot of players representing many different teams in this great league. Take us through, I guess, some of the notable names that you've seen make it. I know that I've seen a few in like Lavoisier and others.
Yeah, you know what? There's been a little bit of controversy over the picks, but there always is. I haven't had a chance to peruse the list too much. I think one of the big notables would be that there's going to be a really strong U15 player from Yellowhead. Um, I think she's going to be somebody to watch. But sometime, give me a name there, buddy. I went a little blank.
Bukowski?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
And I've watched her this year, and I watched her last year at U15. I think she's going to be one of the primetime players in this province. Like she's a defenseman and she's leading the Chiefs in scoring outright.
Yeah, yeah,
On
that's
a team
crazy.
that's fighting for third, fourth place. So that's no fluke that she's still a U15 player. And from the most part, the players that are, the top players from each team have probably been selected. There's some players that, and I'm not going to get into it because it's not worth um, debating. Everybody has a difference of opinion on who should make it and who should. I mean, I did scout for the Program of Excellence for 5 years, and for me, there's probably a couple players that I would have taken that aren't there for sure, but at the end of the day, you're trying to put the best team together um, as a scouting group, as a coaching staff to go represent because it's a Canada Games year, which is a big event. That's bigger than U18 nationals for in most people's minds. And the one thing I do like is that our league has got strong representation across the teams. Um, Central Plains, for instance, has they were up as high as third this year, but they're fighting to stay in sixth, fifth or sixth, and they've got 5 players going. Um,
Yeah,
you know, Westman's got 11, which seemed a little high to me, but whatever. I mean, there's other teams, and somebody said, well, why weren't there more ice? Well, the ice are graduating 10 players.
yeah,
This is a graduating year for him, so there's only 5 or 6 eligible players, and I think they're all going, or they should be.
yeah.
Eastman will have a strong representation, um, and uh, and I think the league is so very well represented. I think it shows that the league is a viable place to play, more than just viable. It's a great place to play if you want to keep moving forward, like whether it be program of excellence, whether it be getting a university opportunity. The league can enhance that for you. And you can stay at home and play hockey.
Yeah, and as we've seen throughout really every time I've seen the rosters, it's always really strongly represented by Team Manitoba, or by the MFHL, sorry,
Yeah. No, that's all
for
right.
Team Manitoba. But yeah, you spoke about Haley Chapelski. You're bang on about her. She's been unbelievable every time we've been able to watch her. And we talked about Delaney Darby logging a lot of minutes. Well, Haley Chapelski
Yeah.
plays in every single situation and has You could argue been the MVP of this year's team at such a young age, age advance.
Yeah, it's hard not to notice her right off the hop. She when you're watching and somebody tells you there's a U15 out there on the ice playing, she's not the one you would pick out.
Yeah,
She's not that small. She doesn't play anywhere like I mean she plays with such confidence
yeah,
for a player of
exactly.
that age. It's hard. Uh, I would unless you knew who she was. I think most people wouldn't have her pegged as the U15 on the ice. Um, so that's kind of special. I always say this: you have to be a little bit careful with U15s. It's still when you go to the U18 Nationals or Canada Games, those teams are probably loaded with a lot of graduating players that are in their last year for that opportunity. And you're still, young. And when you get up against Ontario, Alberta, BC, yeah, as good as she is, it's still another step up. And that's where you'll see the test for a U15 like that. Um, I think Annika Sobering found that out 2 years ago and then was much better last year. She went as a
Yeah,
U15.
yeah,
And now the coaching staff has to be smart about that too, right? You have to know when to use her, when not to use her. If she does step up like an Avery Pickering did in the past as a U15
yeah.
and becomes that kind of player, you're probably going to use her all the time, right? And I'm not
Oh, for
trying to
sure.
say that she's an Avery Pickering yet, but she has those skill sets, right? She does. I mean, I don't think she's physically as strong as Avery might have been, but she sure has the skating, the hockey IQ, and all of that for sure.
Even looking back at her playing in the playoffs last year for Yellowhead, I thought that she looked like she belonged in the league, and it was crazy. She was even younger then, and yeah, just
She was
crazy to
she
see what
was
she's doing.
she was a first year U15, and they could AP her. We can't sign first year U15s. She wouldn't have looked out of place in the league. I went to uh, quite a few of Yellowhead's games last year, all the way to Shoal Lake for one. And in the Shoal Lake game I went to, she stepped in off the boards, made a move off the forward trying to contain her, and buried it under the bar.
Yeah,
And
unreal.
like I said, I guarantee you, nobody in the rink would have thought she was 13 years old or 14 years old when she did that, right?
Ahead of her time for sure. Before I let you go, Ferdy, Kelsey McComb gets the nod as the head coach. Thoughts on that?
No, no, assistant.
Assistant.
Yes.
Okay.
Zacharias, Jordan,
Jordan Zacharias. Okay,
Jordan
we'll restart
got the
that.
head coaching.
Yeah.
Kelsey got the assistant, and I think Kelsey will be wonderful.
Okay.
I think Kelsey does she did an outstanding job when she stepped in last year in Interlake. Interlake, I know people say they haven't won a lot of games, but when you go watch them play, that team still plays with heart and does a lot of good things. They play on the right side of the puck. They play aggressively. You can't tell that team in the league has only won what 2 games. That's not how they play you, right? So when it comes to coaching, that's a tougher coaching assignment than coaching a team that's 23-2. I mean, when you have a talented team, and I've been on both sides of it. When we won the league, it's pretty easy when you're the number one team in the league to open up the gates. Now, when you're, fighting to stay out of the basement, how are you trying to overcoach? Are you trying to play your best players too much to get another win, or are you worried about development? What's your, and I think there has to be a mix. And I think Kelsey has done a wonderful job of that at Interlake. I think the players like her. I think she's going to be a really good addition to Team Manitoba.
Looking forward to what she'll be able to do with that staff.
Yeah.
Of course, led by Coach Zacharias. Ferdi Nelissen
Yeah.
joining this edition of the Next Stage segment here on the MFHL podcast. Thanks for joining me, Ferdi. We'll see you again soon when we talk about more notable commitments here on this great show about this great league.
And Ferdi Nelissen joining this edition of the MFHL Podcast, brought to you by Ken Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Terrico, Movement, Fitness and Performance, Goaltenders, and Elite Prospects. And yeah, I had a chance to talk about the two latest commitments. Congratulations again to Addison Tomes on committing to University of Saskatchewan, and then to Delaney Darby heading to Midland University for the fall of 2026. We also talked about the roster, Ferdi. Talking about, the different teams that are represented and things like that, coming up in, maybe in the next episode, but probably 2 episodes from now, since our next episode will probably be a playoff special type of show, since the playoffs are coming up soon, and I want to try to get my predictions in. But yeah, we'll go over the whole roster heading into the top 20 or the top 68, and then reacting to the cuts that may be made. I'm not sure when they will be made after this upcoming weekend, as it's the first phase of the tryouts for the program of excellence. Of course, Kelsey McComb, an assistant coach this year. Congratulations to her on being able to go and become a part of this staff this year. Her teams always play with a lot of spirit too, and I think just having her as a voice on the bench could be very beneficial for Team Manitoba. But I will speak about, I guess, one player that didn't end up getting named to the tryout roster, and that would be Claire Fraser. Number 10 of the Avros, leads the team in points among defensemen. It's her first season here in the league, and surprised that she got left off. But we'll talk about potential snubs, as well as the roster, how it shapes out coming up in a few episodes from now. Like I said, we're going to throw it to a commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to get into the past scores from the past week of action and weekend of action from the MFHL. We're going to show you the matchups coming up tomorrow night, as we're going to be on location for one of those matchups to broadcast it. That'll be the Winnipeg Ice taking on the Yellowhead Chiefs, as the Ice searching for 2 more points, looking for a victory so they could claim first place. We'll get to standings, stats, all of that coming up next on the MFHL Podcast.
Ken Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Ken Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Ken Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store.
Welcome back into the MFHL Podcast. Of course, Ferdi Nelissen just joined this edition of the show on our college commitment segment, The Next Stage. Has had a chance to watch some Olympic hockey this morning. Canada's men's team winning in their opener about 5-0 over Team Czechia. I know that the Canadian women's team, not sure if it was yesterday or 2 days ago now, but didn't fare so well against the USA. Gotta say though, Sid Seixeiro, or whatever his name is, the former half of Tim on Tim and Sid, said that Troy Ryan seems to be out of his depth right now, and man, what an out of touch take in my opinion. A guy that's been the head coach of that team since 2020. Won a gold medal, or guided Team Canada to a gold medal back in 2022 in the Olympics in Beijing, and I mean, 3 world championships for the guy too in 6 seasons, right? And hey, Team Canada, assuming that they make gold, will probably get another shot at Team USA Or maybe they'll line up in the semis. I'm not really sure how the tournament's going to shape out. I'd have to look up on it. But yeah, female side of the game here in Manitoba, the AAA level, is almost at a close for the regular season. We're just about to get into playoffs. The Eastman Selects with a big win yesterday over Central Plains. They hopped up over the Winnipeg Ice in the standings because of that. But as mentioned, if the Ice are able to secure a victory of any sort against the Yellowhead Chiefs coming up on Friday night, Winnipeg will secure first place for the first time since 23-24 when this team went back-to-back as MFHL champions. Westman gets the third seed, just edging out the Avros by 2 points. But, man, the Avros, they're going to be a really tough out during the playoffs, I'd say. A team that's really hot heading in, and we know how good their goaltending can be. They're starting to get more big-time players stepping up, like Brea Kapusta, Callie Lavalley, for example. Others have been contributing to. Adeline Nolgren just had herself a huge performance this past Friday against the Eastman Selects. And for the Avros, if their captain start to heat up, much like last season, yeah, I think this team's going to be a really tough outcome playoff time. Pembina Valley tied with Central Plains in the standings, but they have a bit of a better points percentage as they have more wins in regulation just by, or I guess they don't. They have about the same amount of wins in regulation as Central Plains. Central Plains 4 shootout wins, for Pembina Valley 3 shootout wins and an overtime win. They played one last game. Then Central Plains, they're taking on the Interlake Lightning coming up on Friday. So with one less game played than Central Plains to this point with pretty much the same record, that's why their points percentage is a bit higher. But Interlake's locked in to facing either, well, at this point, the Eastman Selects, or it could very well be the Winnipeg Ice, depending on how Friday night shakes out. As for this past weekend and week in the MFHL, on Friday night, there was close victory for the Yellowhead Chiefs. The Westman Wildcats cruising to a 7-1 victory over the Interlake Lightning, with the usual suspects involved in terms of Perkin, Fry having big nights, Astle getting in on the goal scoring too, as well as Liver, and then defensively seeing players like Cassia Bernick get on the score sheet as well. But the game that we broadcasted this past Friday was the Eastman Selects taking on the Winnipeg Avros. And as for the Winnipeg Avros, as you can see by the score, a huge win for them, maybe even a statement win. I'd say probably the best the Avros have looked all season long, to be honest with you. And, well, led by a big night by, as shown here, their star players getting into the mix, and Brea Kapusta, Adeline Nolgren, Emily Beattie, a defenseman, and she was able to score the opening goal, and then Brooke Froze was able to also score, which would be the 4th goal of the game in that one. But we're going to get into the highlights now, the best plays from that one this past Friday, about 7 days ago at the Niverville CRRC. So we'll bring a face-off draw back inside the Eastman Selects, and Adeline Nolgren to take the draw. Wins this up with a forehand to Beattie. Shot through, scores! Through the traffic, Beattie able to fool Labossiere as the Avros draw first blood. Somehow to Scott Cook, as Scott Cook stood up just before the Avros blue line. The Avros work this ahead. Nolgren with a step. Girl heading towards the goal. Silky move in front, scores! Captain Avro goes Captain Clutch. As what an effort from Adeline Nolgren, does it all herself along the near side boards. Sweet toe drag and finish by Adeline Nolgren to make it 3-0 at that point in the game. Of course, Vaderigo would salvage things a bit for the Eastman Selects, breaking the shutout of Anya Cohen-Howen in the late stages of the third period. But the Avros pulling off a shocker, I'd say, from Eastman's point of view on their senior night. It spoiled the party for themselves, as that was their last night home game of the regular season. But look, the Avros, they were able to keep shots close in that game, got big saves when it mattered, good defensive play in front of Anyako and Howen as well, and pushing the pace in that game against the Eastman Selects, able to get some pressure going, a forecheck, and I think catching them off guard. And I mean, for this Winnipeg Avros team, like I said, their big-time players are starting to step up more so. Adeline Nolgren is now, finished the season just shy of a point per game, 26 points in 28 games played, but it seems like the captain in Adeline Nolgren is playing her best hockey at the right time. Seems like everything's coming together for this Winnipeg Avros squad. As mentioned, that's been able to win 8 games in a row heading into the playoffs, the hottest team currently. Eastman rattled off 5 straight victories, and which is, I don't think that's exactly right, to be honest with you. They won 3 straight to finish things off. As we look back to Sunday afternoon, the Avros, their final game of the season, an 8-0 victory at home. Many different goal scorers in that one, from the defense to the forwards. But the game that we were on tap for to call was the Eastman Selects and the Winnipeg Avros. And as for Eastman, if you don't come away with a win in that game, your hopes for first place are done. I know that that's something that motivates this group to be able to get the first seed again, and getting a test against, a team that has given them troubles at time this season. But for the Eastman Selects, coming off of a loss on Friday night, having a day to sit on it, they came out strong, added on 2 goals to get up 2-0, but the Winnipeg Ice wouldn't quite go away. As we get into the highlights of that matchup now, the best plays. RA was both battle down low. The Select come out with it in the end. That shot through scores. Isabella Carrier, the one to put it home. Plett wasn't ready for it. Did the initial work with the first 3 stops, and then finally got help from her teammate. That deflects off of Tomes, but first off of Winnipeg Ice players. Tomes turned it aside. The Ice getting it going now. Shot unable to get through. Oh, quick pass in front, scores. It's Chloe Nicholas who finds some quiet ice in front. Everyone occupied with where that puck was, not where it was going to be. Intercepted. The Ice see a player trip into the zone. That was Marion Temple. Now off the stick of an Ice player, right to Scott Cook. Shot, scores! A terrible break for Winnipeg. A wonderful break for Scott Cook and her Eastman Selects. Cheyenne Scott Cook took advantage of a bit of a gaffe, I guess, from the Winnipeg Ice. A bad break for them off the stick of a defenseman right to Cheyenne Scott Cook. That puck redirected to her, and she's able to go in on Gina Plett and snipe it top shelf. And that was good enough to put the Selects over top of the Winnipeg Ice in that matchup to keep their hopes at the time for first place alive. And, to start off this week of action, the final week in MFHL play, Eastman doing all they can to get back in the first place, which eventually they did with that 7-0 victory over the Central Plains Capitals on Wednesday night. We had a chance to call their game on Monday against the Pembina Valley Hawks, where Eastman took over that game as it went along and had themselves a big third period. Labossiere failed to get the shutout, but looked solid in that game, only gave up 1 goal. Addison Tomes able to come away with the shutout victory in the team's final game of the season, as now they await the result of Winnipeg Ice and Yellowhead Chiefs, as it's either well, Central Plains as their matchup, or it could be Pembina Valley in the first round, or if they're able to hold on to that first place seeding if Winnipeg loses tomorrow. Then the Selects would face off against the Interlake Lightning in the best of 5 first round quarterfinals, a rematch of last year's 1-8 series. So a few possibilities, and now we look at the power rankings. I put the Selects up at number 1 over the Winnipeg Ice. This is a team that, recently beaten the Winnipeg Ice, currently in first place right now, having a really strong end to their regular season, the team with the most goals for in the league. And if we also take a look at their defensive stats, they've given up the least goals against in the league as well. So for me, Eastman, with their record currently and how they ended off the season, bouncing back big time after losing to the Avros with that victory against the Ice. That's why they get bumped up a spot. The Winnipeg Ice, though, they don't fall any lower than 2. This was a team heading into that matchup against the Selects where they were on a 12-game heater by the MFHL's website. Just looking at the statistics, right? Second most goals for in the league. Not as strong defensively by the numbers compared to the Eastman Selects, but it's pretty darn close. These two teams as well, they rank in the top 2 of most major statistics in the league in terms of at least penalties given up or power play percentage, penalty kill percentage as well. As for the Avros, they lost their last time out to the Westman Wildcats, but that was in tournament play. In terms of league play, can't ignore what the Avros did from our last power rankings. They were at number 4. We bumped them up a spot. 8 straight victories to end off the season, playing their best hockey at the right time, it seems. And a team that I would not want to match up with in the playoffs, but it's eventually going to happen for one of these teams, right? Especially in the Final Four. For those that make it, they'll have to go against the Avers, and they should be a pretty tough test. As for the Wildcats, they drop only a spot. They had themselves a pretty strong end to their regular season, finishing 3rd place after finishing 7th place last season. So quite an improvement, a great achievement for this Wildcats group taking that next step. The Yellowhead Chiefs, not moving them up or down a spot, feeling like they're comfortably in 5th in our power rankings. A team that, I've talked about the Avros, that's a team you don't want to play, but I feel like the Chiefs, if there's a team that can go out there and make adjustments as games go along to give themselves the best chance, Yellowhead has that in them. One of the better defensive teams in the league, a team that hasn't put up the most offense we've seen from their groups in recent years, but still, a team that finished 5th place in the season, feeling like there's no reason to move them down or move them up at this point. That's why we got them in 5th. As for the Pembina Valley Hawks, given that they're 6th place right now, just taking a look at it, this is a team that has one more game to play, and a team that, based on their goaltending, it has a good chance to keep them in games, certainly in Madison Froze. But for Pembina Valley, I just feel like they're, compared to the Central Plains Capitals, as of late, are playing at a bit of a higher level. Just pulling up the statistics for the last few games. And Pembina Valley going into their final game of the regular season, losing 4 straight. But at the same time, for this group, they've stayed in games, hung in games against teams like the Westman Wildcats. Same with the Yellowhead Chiefs. They were able to beat Yellowhead back on Saturday, January 31st, 2-1 in a big game, and then after followed up with a 4-3 loss to the Westman Wildcats. You compare that to the Central Plains Capitals, which when these last 2 teams met, Pembina Valley beat them on a while ago. These teams have played against each other, beat them back on November 16th, 2-0. But when you look at their games to end off the season compared to the Central Plains Capitals, a team that heads into the playoffs with an even longer losing streak, as this team hasn't won a single game in January up until this point, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, could have had Central Plains lower considering that, and Interlake's been able to pick up some wins too. But just given that Interlake is so far back in the standings in last place, feel like that's the reason why I put them at number 8, just given that them being dead last. But you could make an argument Central Plains not winning a single game in 2026 to this point in league play, that is, and not only that, but being shut out in their last 3 matchups, giving up 23 goals against it in the process. Honestly, should have had them below the Interlake Lightning, but these are the power rankings brought to you by Movement Fitness and Performance. We'll have another edition of those coming out next week here on our network. Here's how the points leaders shape out. Congratulations to Ivy Perkin, who has locked up the scoring lead in terms of points lead, as well as the most goals in the league by any player and the most assists by any player in the league this season. Emily Carrier in her rookie season finishing the highest among rookies, even outscoring Brea Kapusta, who has a few years of age on her in terms of she's older than Carrier, as she's a grade 12 forward. But a couple of Avros in the top 5 there to round it out. Brea Kapusta and Callie Lavalley have been really driving the bus as of late. In terms of most wins in the league, Plett and Tomes right now tied up. If Plett gets the start against Yellowhead, she'll have a chance to have the outright wins lead here in the MFHL for this season. As what a year it's been for Gina Plett. And really that Winnipeg Ice tandem in goal is Isla Matthews has been really impressive in her rookie season, with an even better save percentage than Gina Plett at that. And, I mean, both of these players have gone up against top-end opponents this season, 2 goaltenders that Eugene Kaminsky trusts very much, which says a lot about their skills. We're going to get into the Saskatchewan standings in just a moment before we let you go here on this edition of the show, but Yellowhead, Winnipeg on Friday night. We'll have that game broadcasted for you. Interlake and Pembina Valley will get going at 8 p.m., where for the Winnipeg Ice in that game, they've had some struggles against Yellowhead at times throughout, as Yellowhead's been able to get off to a lead against them before, but I assume that this Winnipeg Ice team is going to be really motivated to get that first seed to lock things up. A group who has proven throughout this season and teams of the past of Eugene Kaminsky's, it just seems like he has them ready to go in these big moments to play at the best of their abilities, and his players execute at such a high level in these important games, right? So I think it's still going to be a battle. I think that Yellowhead is going to come in and play a hard brand of hockey. Could see them playing a physical brand of hockey as well, given that we're right before the playoffs and physicality ramps up at a high pace, right? But for Yellowhead, it's going to be important for them to get off to the early lead in this one. Rely on their good defensive play. Don't sit back, but also don't do anything to jeopardize your coverage in that sense, where you could be running around, and that's exactly where the Winnipeg Ice would want to get them at. And limiting zone time is going to be huge because, I mean, when this Winnipeg Ice team can get the cycle going, they're one of the toughest teams to stop in the league. But if Yellowhead can come up with a good counterattack, can find a way to take away transition through the neutral ice, maybe Winnipeg will have some struggles entering into the offensive zone, as we saw last time out, as it took a bit for Winnipeg to figure out this Yellowhead Chiefs team. But once they did, Winnipeg, of course, was able to break things open and win that game in extra time back when we last saw those two, which was near the start of January. But as mentioned, Pembina Valley looking to secure 7th place with a victory over the Interlake Lightning. The Lightning looking to spoil the party for the Pembina Valley Hawks, as 8 p.m. will be the puck drop in Warren, Manitoba. Not Stonewall, as Warren will be the site for that game. By the way, congratulations to the Week 17 winners. We'll also give you the Week 18 winners right away here. But went to Ava Snyder as Defenseman of the Week in Week 17. Callie Lavalley Forward of the Week with her big hat-trick performance, being significant in that selection. And having 7 points on the 9 goals that her team scored during that week. So super impressive stuff. Same with Shannon Hees, who she's proven to be a really good counterpart to Indigo Stone as this season has gone along. As for the players of the week for Week 18, Callie Franklin, Defenseman of the Week, and then another Avro and Adeline Nolgren getting Forward of the Week. That's a great selection. Same with Adriana Almeida, as the Avros continue to be featured here throughout the awards this season. Yeah, we're going to take a little commercial break, and then I'll be right back to get into the standings from the Saskatchewan Female U18 AAA Hockey League, and then we'll end off this edition of the MFHL Podcast for Season 3, Episode 16 here on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store.
Welcome back into the MFHL Podcast. Just about to get into the end of this episode to send you all off on this Thursday afternoon. Very excited for tomorrow on the network, as we're going to have the Winnipeg Ice taking on the Yellowhead Chiefs in the final game that we're going to be seeing of this regular season of action in the MFHL. And of course, we have High School Hockey League playoff hockey that's going to be going down tomorrow. Before that, potentially that is, if College Belleville is able to go out there today and defeat the Miles Mac Buckeyes, is currently College Belleville in the men's High School Hockey League standings, or in the Platinum Promotions Division playoffs. They're down right now in their Series 1-0 in those best of threes down in the Winnipeg High School Hockey League's Platinum Promotions Division. But as for the Saskatchewan Female U18 AAA Hockey League, as we take a look at the standings, Notre Dame's still without a win at this point in the season. But other than that, besides Battleford's runaway right now with first place, 61 points, they finished first last year too, a very strong program. Outside of that, though, it's not a given that they're going to be the champions. And for the players returning from last year's squad to this year, they know that nothing's a given, as Saskatoon ended up beating them in the finals after a great season that Battleford's had. But in terms of teams coming on right now, that would be the Prince Albert Northern Bears. 5 straight victories. They're only 1 point back of Saskatoon, and they got a ton more games to be played. Weyburn's played the most. Could see them dropping, depending on the end of the season that Saskatoon and Prince Albert has. And of course, Regina, always a strong team, currently second place right now, as they got 2 more games played than Swift Current, as Swift Current, throughout the years too, they've been able to build some strong programs up. Yeah, like I said last time, though, I feel like no matter which team the Manitoba winner plays come the West Regional Series, like Saskatchewan, they've had their number, for a long time now at this event, especially since we've returned to hockey since the COVID-19 pandemic all those years ago now, which it's not even that long ago. It's a bit of an over-exaggeration from me, I guess, but Yeah, no matter which team makes it through, like, you know that they're going to be a skilled, fast skating team that moves the puck around well and has some game breakers on it, right? Like, most likely. And, well, for Manitoba, like, Eastman knows what's in store. Eugene Kaminsky, he's been able to coach in a few West Regional series. He knows what the preparation is all about now at this point as well. And, trying to get his team prepared for that if they're able to make it. Having that experience, I think, could be huge. And then, for all the other teams in the league, too. Like, you just got to know that you're going up against an opponent that is going to raise their level, and you just got to be ready for that. And you got to know, too, that, look, it's a shorter series. It's not best 3 out of 5. It's a best 2 out of 3 instead. So that first game in the West Regionals, even though Eastman won it last year and ended up losing, it still is crucial to be able to get that, as most of these series throughout the past few years have ended up in sweeps. So if you're able to get that first win, you give yourself a pretty good shot to potentially go to the SO Cup. But lots of times still before that West Regional series, cannot wait to cover it here on our network on our Uscreen service when that time does come around. But before that, it's going to be a really exciting MFHL playoffs. There's one matchup that is officially set. All the rest of the matchups will be set after tomorrow night, as the only matchup set is the Winnipeg Avros and the Yellowhead Chiefs. Winnipeg, they're able to win tomorrow, they get first place. If not, they finish in second. Yellowhead is looking to pull off that upset in Winnipeg at the Hockey for All Center. And as for us, when we will be joining you next, we'll be at the Hockey for All Center on our Uscreen service. If you want to support these athletes, be sure to purchase our MFHL game day tomorrow and any others that you missed, as a portion of the money goes directly back to the MFHL. That's going to do it for this edition of the MFHL Podcast. I've been your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. Special thanks to you, the viewer, for tuning into this one. If you enjoyed this edition of the MFHL Podcast, consider subscribing, leaving a like, turning on notifications. All things help us, and subscribe and turn on notifications helps you not miss a single episode that is going to be coming out. As once we put these episodes out, a notification goes out, and then boom, you can click it and bang, you're right here to watch the MFHL Podcast. But I want to thank Ferdi Nelissen for coming on the show, being the guest in this episode. Always great to get his thoughts, his insight on the college commitments / university commitments, and as well as the top 68 camp for Team Manitoba. We'll have more news on that throughout this month and the next month on, what's going to be your home for MFHL playoff hockey very soon. Here is the true games about to begin here. Hope you all enjoy it, and can't wait to reveal our playoff picks once all the series are set, as probably me and Ferdi breaking it down. But until then, until episode 17, season 3, like I said, I've been your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. Peacing out and waving so long, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and hoping to see you all tomorrow, watching our Yellowhead Chiefs versus Winnipeg Ice live stream. Take care.